field has a specific type of attribute. We talked about this last time. It might be it has to be a unique name too. So notice here, in SQL, it doesn't like spaces. Spaces are tough. So usually you'll see a lot of underscores. Last underscore name, first underscore name, department, registration. These are field names. They have to be unique. You can't have the same column name in the same table. It has to always be unique, the column name. And then you can't have, every row must be unique. So you can't have this exact same copy of this employee ID twice within the table. You won't see anything in SQL that is, because what happens is every one of these tables has something called a primary key, meaning that's a unique value. And you can't have more than one of those values in that table. Again, I'm just giving you some background and get into some of the details. You'll probably see this a little bit later. But primary key, as I mentioned before, is what makes it unique. So if you think about students, right? Usually a student ID is going to be unique. Every student has a unique student ID. So if you look at a student table, the student ID is probably their primary key or the unique value in it. Again, every table has its own unique primary key, and it can vary. So we'll look at some examples here, but it can vary, but every one of them has something that makes it unique. In this example here, you've got a list of customers. This customer ID is going to be a unique ID. You might have somebody, James and James both live in the same address, right? They might be twin brothers, and their parents named them the same name, and they live in the same place, right? But one will have a unique ID that's different than the other. Another example, for a sales record, you'll have a customer ID. They bought a specific product. That product has a product ID. This is a transaction. They bought it on this date, this amount, this quantity, right? So now, let's say this happened twice. They bought two of these, right? Instead of having two rows, it would update the quantity, and you'd have two in this number, rather than duplicating this exact row over and over. I'm going to skip through this because this is better for when we go through joins. But basically what this means is you have a table that has its own primary key, in this case customers, and then you have another table, orders, that also has a list of that customer ID. So eventually when we talk about combining tables, I can pull data from customers and orders by connecting these two fields. Okay? And again, I'm going to skip this because I don't want to confuse you too much just yet. Okay. Let's go through the basics of what a SQL query is made up of. A SQL query, in the simplest form, has a statement that says select, and then it's going to tell you what are the columns that I want to bring back. So if I select any of the columns available, I can type in those columns there, and I'm saying from which table it's going to be coming from. In the most basic example, these are the two things that you'd always have: a select clause and a from clause. So it can vary quite a bit after that, but this is the structure of all the different options that you can use for a SQL query. So you can say select, and then remember, let's go back to an example here. If we look at, here's our employee information table, right? We've got employees, we've got their IDs, the last name, the first name, department, hire date, and the salary. This table itself is called employee info, and these are the column headings. So if you remember, select, from, two basic things. Select means basically retrieve back, and it's going to tell it what specific fields do I want to select. So in this case, I want to take the employee ID, I want the last name, I want the first name. So it's only asking for these three columns. Again, select is asking you, what do you want to return back, okay? In this case, I'm only saying these, and then from, it says from which table, from what location am I getting this? So if I did something like select this, this, and this from employee info, which is the name of the table, it's gonna only return back these specific values here. Okay? You guys with me so far? Anybody like?
I'm trying to understand, but just the MySQL won't accept the database for some reason.
Okay, well, we'll get there in a second. Just this is gonna provide you the general context of a SQL query. So you have to understand just the general like structure and syntax of how to write it. And then from there, you can play around and you can start manipulating and using it however you want. Okay? So again, the very basic thing, if I had, let's say, 10,000 employers in my file, right? If I ran this query right here and just select these 3 fields from here, I'm gonna get 10,000 results back for every single employee ID, last name and first name that's in my data, right? That's where this where statement comes in. Where is like a filter. It allows you to filter down so that I don't pull in everything that's in this table. So in this case, I said select this data from this table, and I add this where clause that says where the department equals marketing. So what do you think this is going to return back when I run this query? Anybody have any idea?
It's only going to bring the employees from the marketing
department. What would it pull back?
The ID, the last name, and the first name from the marketing department.
John Marvin. It would only bring back John Marvin because he's the only person that's in this marketing department. Everybody else is in a different department.
I can share this with you.
Okay? Notice though, this is something, look, the department itself, because it's a field value, it's in double quotes. Where the department equals marketing, it's because I'm pulling back a data type of a marketing string, it has to be in double quotes. So if I'm ever using my where clause, I could even say, how do you think we would do it if we wanted where the last name, we only wanted this patient or this person to show up? How could we run a query that only returns back Michael Carter? What do you think we could put in the where clause to bring back only Michael Carter?
Sales.
Salary 60,000, that's one option. Yep. You couldn't do department equals sales, right? Because if you did that, you'd get both, Jose and Michael, right? But if you said, you can do a lot of things. You could say employee ID equals this. You could say last name equals this. You could say first name equals this. You could say hire date equals this. You could also say salary equals this, right? Those are all unique. That only would be for Michael Carter, right? You can also add things like, so that's in its basic state, those are sort of the most simple type of queries that you're gonna return back. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated and there's additional types of, I'm gonna skip some of these group by, having, and order by. Order by is a pretty easy one, so I might cover that. Let's say I wanted to, let's go back to our example here. Let's say I wanted to get this, and I want it sorted by the highest salaries, okay? That's where at the end I would add an order by, and an order by is a sort. So think of where as a filter, an order by would then be a sort. So if I said, select this information and order it by salary, then it would return it in an order, think of like a sort in Excel, right? When you sort it by highest to lowest, it'll order it by that salary. Okay, so those are the things that we covered, the main ones: select, from, where, and order by. Group by and having, I'm gonna skip for right now. Those are a little bit more complicated. Those are Boolean type things. You can also add other types of operators. You can have an and, an or, a not. You can use equals, greater than, equals, less than. What do you think this one means?
Not equal.
Not equal, yeah. You can do less than or equal, right? So these are all different types of operators, and so are these and, or not. So let's look at some examples of how I would take this and maybe use an and, right? So if I wanted this where department equals marketing and department equals sales, I could write my query. All I'd have to do is add an and between department equals marketing, and then I can and departments equals sales, and that's going to give me back then everything that has both marketing and sales departments. So those are different types of expressions that you can use to gather more data or return more of those filters. You can use an and, you can use an or. So what would it do if I had, if I said if department equals marketing and department equals sales? Do you think I'd get anything back?
Say that again?
If I said where department equals marketing and department equals sales, you get nothing back, right?
Is this
There's
two
nobody
wheres?
that has both marketing and sales
Oh, okay.
within here. So what would I have to write then if I wanted or, right? Where department equals marketing or department equals sales. Now, I could use and if I said where department equals marketing and salary is greater than 60,000. So all of those different conditions that I'm talking about, these and, or, equals, less than, greater than, not equal to, you're mainly going to be using in this where clause, because that's going to be your filter. So if I were you, I would write select is what I'm searching for, from is my table it's coming from, the where is my filter. That's how I'm going to filter down the results. And the last thing is your order by is our sort, if you ever need to use it. Order of operations goes in here. It gets a little, so like if I wanted to do like where, it can get a little complicated, but like in SQL you have the ability to like even do a like, it's called a like statement. So if I don't want to know specifically John, I could say the first letter is like a J, right? So I could then find anybody whose first name starts with a J. And then I can also say, you can combine ands and ors statements. But it has to follow parentheses like order of operations. I can't just, without, and I'll go through an example. That might be a little easier to see that. Okay, so here's an example of how that would work, right? So if I said from this table, select, again, the same three things. What we're trying to do here is now find any employees that are in the sales department or employees that were hired before December 30th and have a salary above $59,000. Okay, so notice this is kind of like math here, word problems, right? But it's, first thing is somebody who's in the sales department, right? So where the department equals sales. But notice hired before here and have a salary of this. So these two are connected, right? Being hired before December 2006 and having a salary greater than $59,000. So how do you think the parentheses would be if you're looking at order of operation or something like this? Anybody have any ideas? These two are combined, right? Hired before this date and having a salary of this. So these two need to be connected. I needed to look at both a hire date of this and a salary of this. So my parentheses would be around this one, because this is one statement. And then my sales would be around here. So it would look something like this. So yeah, your parentheses would be around here, and you'd have department equals sales, or, and then this would go around here. We'll go through one of these when we do our practice. Here's another question. Who are the employees that have salaries between $58,000 and $65,000? There's a couple of different ways you can write this, right? You can say where the salary is greater than or equal to $58,000, and the salary is less than or equal to $65,000, right? That's one way to write it. Another way, I mean, nobody would ever write this like this, but salary is less than this and not salary less than this, which is, I wouldn't write it that way. The other way you can write it is using this condition called between, where the salary is between $58,000 and $65,000. That's a keyword reserved for SQL. It's called between. If you go back to our operators that I showed you before, between is another between certain dates. Right? Let's say you wanted to say who was hired between 2006, right? You could write a query that says where the hire date between 01/01/2006 and 12/31/2006. And that'll give me all those people there. In the same way, you could have also written it like this, where the hire date is greater than or equal to 01/01/2006, and the hire date is less than or equal to 12/31/2006. So it's basically the same thing. You could have written them either way, but this is just using your word classes. Let's see if there's you can also use one of these key reserve words called in. In allows you to do a list. Okay, so if I wanted to do something like, I want to find specific values here. So in this case, I want to find anybody that has a salary of $58,000 or a salary of $65,000. Right? I could write this like where the salary equals $58,000 or the salary equals $65,000. Or I could use salary in, and then I ask it for a bunch of things to check. Now this is helpful if you've got like, 10 different things or 20 things that you want to look at. Instead of having to write where salary is this, or this, or this, or this, or this, you put an in statement and it allows you to check against the list. Alright, I think those are the main things that I wanted to cover as far as the syntax goes. Maybe we'll go through some examples now. Alright, so who's having issues loading up the database? Okay, let me walk you through how to do this. Database, add a database, choose your file. I'm going to pick a different file because I already have patient data loaded, so I'm going to use extra practice database. It should look like that. Hit save. You can try test connection. Hopefully you'll get a green.
Did you click the green plus one?
Okay. Database, add a database. You guys there? Okay. Well, first thing is, did you save the file from the e-learning?
Yes.
You have to make sure you go into e-learning and you're going to have to download this file here that's called patientdata.sql. Yeah.
So when you're trying to do that, at least for me on a Mac, there's no application I can actually run it.
You can't save it to your computer?
Now on the Windows side, it's not even recognizing.
No, don't try to open it.
I'm not opening it.
Yeah, you just have to save it somewhere. Like when you click on it in e-learning, it should save just to your like downloads folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Right?
it doesn't let you kind of like click it.
It's
Don't try to click on it.
No,
I mean,
like
if you
when-
really want to, you can open it with Notepad. I'll show you what it looks like.
Bless you.
On the list to choose the file. It doesn't come up.
It's not recognizing it as a database
Yeah.
to upload into the program.
So if you, this is what it's, you save this patient data on SQL, right? That's what you do.
Yep. I'll do.
SQL, right? Downloads. Patient data. It's in rather downloads. Downloads.
Click the database, add database, you should get the
So look at the bottom where it says all SQL. Okay.
Click a green
So
sign.
here's probably what's going on for you guys. Let's see what's happening. When you go to add a database and you click on this add button, down here, go to all files. You see that? It tests finish. Might have
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't let me add it here.
No, that still didn't work. No. Did you click this thing to add it? No, I didn't. Like, I just like exactly follow this, and I got this. Oh my god. I just followed that, I got it. I don't know. Like,
So
what's
do
going
me a
on
favor,
here.
just save that and send it just in downloads. Save everything to a folder, a separate folder. And then
I'm just gonna throw my laptop away.
it should work it down, but save it to a different folder. I've seen it sometimes where when you download it, it locks the file after you've installed it, so you might have to restart and then go. Has anybody got it working?
Do you care what the file name is?
No. Well, I don't, hold on, let me make sure. Answer that.
I guess we can't be tested on this now anymore.
Yeah, it's okay, you can rename it. But, yeah, you can rename the file. Yeah.
It says query finished, or is it back at 40, is that correct?
Yep. So then once you have that, you should on this left side be able to see these tables. You'll have, these are your specific tables.
Why does this can't
So
add
behind the
data?
scenes, what this is doing, guys, it's basically just creating tables for you, and then it's adding fake data in there for you. So it's creating a patient table, a visit table,
You might go ask it.
medications table, a lab table, and a vitals table. And it's adding a bunch of data. If you're having problems connecting to it, I've seen it where sometimes you have to restart your computer. Because if you try to install it the same day that the same time that you're downloading it, sometimes the file could get locked. And I'd really recommend, like what I've done here is I've saved everything to a separate folder. Don't just keep it in downloads. For me, I have a separate folder that I've put all the files, the data, and then also the studio. And make sure not, because sometimes if there's something opening this patient data file and it's in use, you're not going to be able to import it. That's why I say sometimes you have to restart it before you. Okay, so let's go through a couple examples.